Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jay Encarnacion, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are thrilled to have Bryan Gray, the founder and CEO of Revenue Path Group. Bryan brings a fascinating mix of expertise in decision science and neuroscience applied to sales, over 3 decades of sales and business leadership experience, including leading 2 companies to the Inc. 500 list, and a passion for helping B2B organizations avoid commoditization and align with buyer priorities. Based in the greater Indianapolis area, Revenue Path Group, founded around 2013 to 2015, is revolutionizing how companies build revenue cultures and win deals through innovative methodologies like the priority sale. We'll be using his and going over his founding story, how his business empowers clients in the revenue growth space, and his vision for scaling this impact-driven venture. So with that being said, let's dive right into it. Bryan, welcome to Founders Future.
Hey Jay, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, and thanks for the nice introduction there, my friend.
Absolutely. An incredible background that you have here, Bryan, and truly an honor to have you on the show today. So to start, for our listeners, if you could take us back to the beginning, what specific problem in the revenue growth landscape really inspired you to start Revenue Path Group?
Yeah, it's one thing about being an entrepreneur, and this will speak to others listening, is that we always look for things that are broken and have a wee bit of overconfidence that we could solve it if we had enough time and money to do that. I've always been fascinated through my business journey on how inefficient and ineffective the sales process is, and how the tools we use, the marketing groups we work with, and the messaging we create, and the way our sellers behave just seemed really clunky to me.
Mhm.
And I felt all along that we're showing up too low, too late. And this has been through the evolution of selling, right? When I started working back in 1989, there was no internet, Jay. So
Right.
we had a role as a seller completely different than we do today. So as the world has accelerated around us, I've continually focused on how inefficient, ineffective selling and sellers are. And here I find myself cracking the code and working to solve it. That's really what led to our iteration as we are right now. I never thought that I'd be doing this throughout
Yeah.
my career, but yet here I am doing my life's best work.
I love it. I absolutely love that. So I definitely want to get right into the nitty gritty, right? Because it really sounds like this is something that can help so many. So I would love to hear from you really how you're generating revenue today with Revenue Path Group, especially around the core offer. I know you do some phased services, including assessments, workshops, AI coaching. So really walk us through all of your core offerings and who is the ideal client that you work with these offerings?
Yeah, let's start with the real problem we see. The biggest current threat we see, Jay, is that the biggest threat organizations face is becoming a commodity in their prospects' eyes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's making it worse, decision-making teams keep getting bigger. And
Yes.
sellers are being ignored to the very end of the buying journey, driving that old race to the bottom, which I'm sure that means it's all about price.
Oh, yeah.
Because if the prospect can't tell the difference, why would they ever pay more?
Mm.
It's driven by what I call the three deadly C's: commoditization, compressed selling time, and consensus decision making.
Mm.
Everybody's showing up looking, sounding, acting the same. We have less face time to sell than we've ever had before.
Yep.
And decision making teams are as big as ever. And what I fundamentally believe, Jay, is that sellers today are unprepared, underdeveloped, and ill equipped to fight back. Now, that's a problem in and of itself. But here's another observation. As AI continues to proliferate, knowledge becomes free, expertise is everywhere, asymmetry of information is gone. I believe margin is going to be harder and harder for organizations to create.
Yes.
And what happens is when your sellers are showing up too low, too late in the buying journey, they're not creating any margin for the organization to work with. I hear CEOs say all the time, I'm as busy as ever and can't keep up. I say that is a margin problem, my friend, not a revenue problem, it's a margin problem. So the real problem is that margin is going to be harder to achieve in the future. And margin is your relevance, your vitality, and your value, all wrapped up into a number. And what I fundamentally believe is that margin creation must start through the sales function, yet they're unprepared and ill-equipped. So what we do is we help organizations understand that continue to show up when there is a lead only invites competition, and comparison compresses margin. So we have to help organizations not just realize that I'm showing up way too low, way too late, is how can I get someone's attention who's not already shopping? Because what most sellers do, Jay, is they wait for a lead to show up. Guess what? When that comes in, they're talking to 3 people, everybody can do the work, and price becomes a driver.
Yep.
So when I talk to sellers that when you show up when there's a lead, there's no margin left. If you want to create margin, you got to be in earlier at a higher level and start a buying journey, create demand with a very high level decision maker who's not shopping. Sounds simple, very hard to pull off because sellers don't know what to say. They're not shopping. What do I say to them? So we help organizations develop what I call the priority position. Why in the world should someone talk to you and take a meeting with you when they're not shopping? And you've got to do that within 30 to 40 seconds. It's your classical elevator pitch, right? Next, we help sellers with that messaging apply it in a way that gets them earlier access at higher levels. Then we build the selling tools around them to help them move their decision-making teams to a faster decision. And then we upskill and develop sellers to be able to execute. The fact is we have too many sellers out there today that aren't as effective as they need to be.
Incredible. So on that front, as far as the ideal client, is that going to be more on the small, medium business side and working with the teams, more executive and working with their teams? What does that look like on that front?
Yeah, we like to, the executive area is the place to start. And I look for he or she who's most threatened or most concerned about margin loss, right? He or she who has to answer to the board as to why they're not growing and why their market share is not growing at pace, or if their margins are compressing. That's my ideal target audience. And I don't think they wake up thinking that what we can do can help them, which goes to our business development process we'll talk about. And I think it'll be helpful for others. Our ideal target, Jay, are going to be anyone with a B2B sales organization. And whether you have 1 or 1,000 salespeople, you have the same darn problem. Our ideal target has to be between 15 to 300 sellers, right? It gets us the right kind of access and it keeps us at the executive level. But whether you're large or small, every seller has the same problem and the same challenge.
Interesting. So on that front, I would love to hear from you, Bryan, as the founder and the way that you're thinking about scaling Revenue Path Group. What has that been, that experience? How has that been for you scaling Revenue Path Group with this type of offer? Is there something more that you're productizing on this end? It sounds like you're very hands-on, in-depth with each of your clients. How does that look on a scaling effort for you?
Yeah, it was hard and it's getting easier. So what's interesting about AI is obviously we all know enough about it. The reality is it's going to fundamentally support and threaten every single business out there. And that's why I always separate the difference between a fear and a threat, right? AI is an insane threat to my business, Jay, but I'm not afraid of it because we are building to scale because of it. We could not scale without it. Because when you think about the effort to develop 150 salespeople with locations around the world, the amount of effort and labor it took to do good work, but it was super, super hard using traditional training methods.
Right.
All those, it was just hard. And we can only grow as fast as the brightness of our consultants. Now AI comes along and we say to ourselves, geez, we're just a small little business here with a tremendous amount of upside because every B2B organization could benefit from what we do, but we can't get to everyone. We can't support everyone, but AI can help us do that. So now instead of training your sellers in a world that's fast changing, if I can't get in early at a higher level and my competitor does, I'm done. So every seller has to get exponentially better faster. How many workshops are you going to be able to pull off? AI, on the other hand, can actually help reinforce, coach, mentor, teach a seller every single day before every single upcoming call so that your sellers get better faster. And what do I mean by that, Jay? We talk about this race to the bottom where everybody's at, no margin left. The only way to counter that race to the bottom, Jay, is a sprint to the summit. I need to be in earlier at a higher level, at the highest level, but there's only room for one.
Yeah.
So it's either you or your competitors are going to get that space. So tell me, are we going to settle for once a year training, once a month training when my competitors are getting better every single day? And that's where AI, things like AI are really helping us expand our reach and supplement and complement the consulting work that we do. There's always a human in the loop, but we want to keep reducing the amount of human interaction that's necessary and let AI take on that support. Does it drive down my revenue per client? Sure. My margin per client couldn't be greater. My market share opportunity is much more achievable that way.
Absolutely. On that front, I would definitely love to hear from you with that a bit more of the acquisition side. Can you walk us through a bit what you're seeing there, especially today with, as you mentioned, AI and technology and where things are? What channels have been most effective for you for lead generation, bringing in new clients, and what challenges have you been facing on the front to bring in predictability?
Yeah. First of all, I believe that, and this is a little bit challenging for some to wrap their mind around, but my hot take is this: leads are too late. Because a lead means there's existing demand, right? Because a lead means, hey, I'm looking for someone that can do blank. And all of a sudden, 2 or 3 people are now on the scene. I'm not afraid of competition, but I'm also aware that there are other good, competent competitors out there that when you show up when there's a lead, your margin compression is much greater. So what we do and what we help our organizations do is to find what we call a signal strategy, right? You need to be in at a higher level before there's even thought of a lead, before they even thought about a buying journey, right? And you've heard people use insights to gain access, to gain influence. So we are all about hunting at high levels before a need has even been identified. How do you do that? Clearly, thought leadership helps. Speaking, right, and being in front of audiences with a really hot take on helping name a threat they have that they didn't connect it to what it is you do. No one wakes up saying, you know what, I need an organization that can help me get earlier access at a higher level with the right message and the things that we do.
Right.
But once we have a few seconds with someone, then a few minutes and up to an hour when we speak, they'll say, that's exactly what my problem is, and you have nailed it to my ideal prospect. Because we were all about margin creation, not revenue generation. And I think that's something that all of your listeners, we need to flip that switch. It's not about making a sale. It's about creating greater margin in our sales process.
Incredible. So really just having as much profitability as possible. On that note, Bryan, is something like ads and social media something that you've done in the past and just with what you're doing didn't work well, or have you completely just stayed away from it because of the approach and the angle that you're taking? I would love to hear.
I think social can support that from a LinkedIn strategy. I don't look at LinkedIn to generate any business for me. I just want LinkedIn to be a place where people are like, wow, that makes sense. I get that. I'm going to download that position paper. And I like to call it position paper versus a white paper, less research involved. Position papers is your hot take and what you believe that's supported by 750 words. And I think that the position paper is what is necessary to get access at that highest level. Because I'm not, me or you, none of us are trying to sell to everybody. You can't make any money doing that.
Right.
You've got to be ideally fit for those who believe what you believe. Only by having the right, really hot take on the 3 threats you're facing you don't realize, the 3 traps you're walking right into and didn't understand. And that's where I think social can help you soften this up. Because again, I don't want to work for a lead, and I know I'm splitting hairs a bit, but I want to start conversations at really high levels that are usually not involved in the buying process once it starts.
Interesting.
That's where the parts lies, and that's where the shortened sales cycle resides.
Absolutely. So walk us through that a bit. What does that sales process look like? Are you running the sales as the founder-led sales, or do you have a sales team, marketing team? What does that team look like?
Now, Jay, it's been on me. So we're looking, as we're now able to scale faster and do more, we are looking for business development that I kind of look at this, the old gold rush, right? Do you want to be the one that's out there panning, or do you want to be the one selling the pickaxes and the jeans and all that? The money was made by those on that side of this. And when you look at how heavily staffed and how much money is being spent on the sales function today, that needs completely redrawn, redeveloped, and restructured. And so I'm looking for sellers that can help us do that very thing, because every business is in the same spot. Now, up till now, as a founder seller, right, I'm the one that does the speaking, which I love to, don't get me wrong. But I love being that spot where I can lay down a vision that I fundamentally believe in. May not be for everybody, but those precious few will say, you're in my head the whole time. When you said this, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And when you can make that kind of alignment at the highest level, we don't talk long sales cycles, because when you can fit someone's threat, which gets in the neuroscience part of this, when you can align to their threat, that's their purchase, not your sale anymore.
Right. I absolutely love that. So now the mission, as you're continuing to scale, is bringing on some setters, some closers, building that team out, really being able to hit that scale at new heights and new levels there. As far as bottlenecks do go, Bryan, talk to me a bit about what you're thinking about right now that you have to break through for that continued success, whether it be more predictability for leads coming in or people that you're talking to, again, building out the sales function. Walk us through what you're thinking about on that side.
Yeah, I think about on beyond the building of the business side. That's to me on the IP is something I enjoy. I don't have a lot of friction there, and that's where AI
Yeah,
has been so helpful for me in creating content and that we can scale and we can roll
absolutely.
out.
Absolutely.
To me, it's finding it's the same sales challenge, finding sellers who believe what we believe. Because one of the things I think that most sales jobs are going not most, I'd say half the sales jobs are going to go in the next 2 or 3 years.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
And they'll hopefully find other things to do within the organization. I don't believe we're here to get rid of people. I challenge CEOs all the time. Take your people, go double your business. Just you don't have to fire people. Put them in the right spots. Right? AI is going to take over 80% of what a human seller does today in less than 2 years.
Yeah.
So if you can't live with so much capacity without any additional capability. So that's where we're going to see quite a bit of washing out here. To me, it's finding the right sellers who see this all coming, can articulate it and say, I can go take this. I can go speak about this. I can go, in essence, emulate the approach that I have personally been taking. And just giving that the time and attention it needs, Jay. That's really what that comes down to.
Absolutely. So on that note, I would love to hear from you. Just if you could paint a picture for us, what does the rest of this year look like right now for Revenue Path Group for that continued success, that scale? I would love to hear what you're laser focused on to truly achieve that.
Yeah, laser focused. I have a new book coming out called Max Your Margins, which is really, and I think for any organization to survive and thrive moving forward, is that they have to find that higher ground. And I think that you hear so often that our expertise and we're that all that stuff be washed away by AI. I just don't think leaders are ready for the amount of change we're going to see because you're seeing accelerating change stack on top of accelerating change, and it gets really hard for our brains. So one of the things that we always preach what we practice and practice what we preach. To us, it's making sure we have commercially viable content that elevates the conversation. For us, I want people to look at their sales function not as a means to generate revenue. AI will do that. I'm looking to reposition the sales function to create and win greater margins. Boy, to do that, we've got to look at our entire team differently. We've got to prepare, equip, and develop them differently. So ours is very much a thought leadership approach. The pressure of getting a book done drives me nuts because I want to rewrite the whole thing
Every day.
that becomes a challenge. And we book for speaking engagements. I work with a lot of CEO groups where I speak and provide workshop environments, which that helps me sharpen our content. So what I hope I'm doing is the right thing, and that is continually sharpening our approach and angle so that higher level decision makers bring us in before they even thought about going down a buying journey path.
Absolutely incredible. So with that, I do want to take us into the lightning round here. The time is flying by on me here, Bryan. Incredible having you on and just hearing how your brain is processing the future and AI and what you're doing to really take advantage of it. Incredible conversation this far. I would love to hear from you as far as a tool or a resource that you're using, whether it's a neuroscience insight, a sales strategy, an AI tool. What can you say has been the biggest game changer for Revenue Path Group this far?
Yeah, the biggest game changer to me, I believe, is understand your real prospect.
Yeah.
Your real prospect's a 3-pound organ called the brain. It is a very complex organ, but it's a very primitive and predictable decision maker. And we always act on our priorities. And our priorities are the threats that we're dealing with. And I think this is misunderstood by 90% of sellers out there. They don't understand why and how they win. And if they simply understood how easy it is to get to the right part of the brain, it would fundamentally change the way anyone sells moving forward. That happened to me years and years ago. I met the guys who wrote the first book on neuromarketing.
Yeah.
I'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on sales training. It didn't work like I thought it should. And that just completely flipped a switch for me that I'm still fascinated by how little people understand about who their prospect truly is, that being the brain.
Interesting. And what book was that?
That was called neuromarketing. My book called The Priority Sale, which Jay, I didn't even bring a copy to show you. The Priority Sale is really an accumulation of what we've gleaned and learned and worked around. And it does a good job covering how our brains make buying decisions. But the original book, it's old school. It's called Neuromarketing by Patrick and Christoph.
Incredible. Incredible. So I just got one more question for you here, Bryan, and that's going to be on the advice side. I know you're going to have something good here for our listeners. What kind of advice can you leave for our listeners here? Just listen to your incredible journey, everything you're doing with Revenue Path Group, and really what you're looking to take advantage of the future with the future here, what can you leave them with before we wrap up?
Man, I think it's a tough one. It's a tough, quick one. I believe that the only way for us to survive and thrive is to, Mark Cuban said this years ago, every day I wake up thinking, how would I kick my ass?
Yeah.
And that reminds me also of Andy Grove's book years ago, Only the Paranoid Survive. So I think any kind of advice is we have to viscerally feel what it's going to be like to be disrupted on a continual basis. Not as scary, Jay, as it may sound when you first hear it, but when you perpetually live in a world of disruption and redefinition of business as we know it, and you understand your real impact, it's actually more of a lighthouse amongst chaos. So I think we have to start thinking in terms of continual velocity and uncertainty, study paradigms, how we win or lose based on the rules that are established. What happens when the rules change every year, right? So I think that this getting used to a high velocity, insane amount of uncertainty moving forward is a skill I wish upon everyone in business today. Because I think if you don't adapt that, I think you're going to really struggle with acceleration.
Incredible. Incredible. With that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. And Bryan, truly cannot thank you enough for coming on the show, sharing your incredible journey and your insights with us. It's clear as day, the passion, the drive, the intelligence. You're doing some amazing things, and it was a pleasure and an honor to have this conversation with you today. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, which I know so many of you have, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And also check out Revenue Path Group at revenuepathgroup.com for their free resources like position papers or ebooks. And follow Bryan on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Bryan S. Gray. For more resources and insights, you can visit us here at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.